By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to set up a 50% meals and entertainment tax code in QuickBooks for Ontario so your GST, HST is calculated properly and doesn't require a big adjustment at the end of the period. So here's a really quick breakdown. In Canada, meals and entertainment are only 50% deductible and the CRA applies the same exact limitation to ITCs. And if you're new to all of this, input tax credits are basically just the taxes you pay on business expenses that you're allowed to reclaim when you file your GST, HST return. So if the expenses for your business, the CRA lets you claim back the tax, but with meals, they only let you reclaim half. That's why by default, QuickBooks gets this wrong unless you set up a 50% tax code. Now you can just do a big adjusting entry at the end of the month, quarter, year to reduce your ITCs, and a lot of bookkeepers actually do this. But it's messy, it's easy to miss, and it creates extra work at the end of every period. Setting up a 50% tax code makes sure QuickBooks calculates this on every transaction and you don't have to deal with anything at the end of the period. A question I always get from my clients is when can I actually write off meals? As long as the meal directly supports your business, so if it's a client meeting or travel for work, it's completely okay to write off, but you still have to document it properly. So generally, I'll tell my clients to write down who they met, why they met them for, or where they're traveling on the receipt itself. So just in case the CRA ever audits, they have documentation and proof. So now that we understand all of that, let's jump into QuickBooks and actually set up this 50% tax code. So here we are in the QuickBooks homepage dashboard, and this is just a sample account for privacy reasons and just for the demonstration. If you guys want to use a sample account to try things out, I made a video on that last week, so you could go check that out. But essentially, we're going to just go to My Apps, and there's going to be a sales tax drop down. And this brings us to the sales tax overview. And it's giving me a little walkthrough here because this is a new sample account. We're just going to press got it, and then we're going to go to Manage Sales Tax. So you can see we already have the Canada Revenue Agency as a tax entity in this QuickBooks, and this is because it's an Ontario sample account. But we're not going to add a new agency. We're going to add a custom rate. So what we're going to do is add both halves of the sales tax, the claimable portion and the non-claimable portion. So we're going to name this first one half of HST claimable. And then we're going to pay this on purchases because this has nothing to do with sales. So we pay it on purchases. And the tax is going to be 6.5% because in Ontario, the total tax is 13%. And we're doing this by claimable half and non-claimable half. So they're each 50% of that total 13% tax. And this is going to be a liability account, and we're going to tell it to show it on input tax credits. We're just going to add that there. Now we're going to add the other half of the tax that's non-claimable. So half of HST non-claimable. And then we're going to pay this on purchases like we did with the last one. It's going to be 6.5% again, but we're actually going to put it to non-tracking because we're not going to write this off. It's not going to be an ITC that we claim, so it's non-tracking. And then we can just add that here. So now we have both halves of that 13% HST. We have the 6.5% that we can claim and the 6.5% that we can't claim. And now we're going to combine this into one tax code. So if you go to add tax, you go to combine taxes into a group rate. You can name this whatever you want. Generally, I'll name it 50% of meals. And then we're going to select that first rate, the half of HST claimable. And then we're going to select that second rate, half of HST non-claimable. And we're going to make it applicable on the net amount. So if the total is $100, it's going to do $6.5 of claimable tax and $6.5 of non-claimable tax. So this is essentially telling QuickBooks that the tax is already included in that total from your expense. We're going to press add here. And then there you have it. You have that 50% meals tax code. So it'll only claim half of the tax credits on that meal. So I'm sure I could show you here an example. If we go to our bank transactions and we go to classify something, scroll down here, we have a restaurant expense here. So just to show you guys, you just scroll to the bottom and then you have that 50% of meals here. So now this tax code will automatically track half of the GST, HST we paid on this transaction and claim it on our tax return, and the other half won't be tracked. And we could even set this as the tax code for this category, and that would be a good idea. I would go for that. But there you have it. This is how you create a 50% tax code for meals in QuickBooks for Ontario residents. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like. It really helps the channel. And if you're a Canadian business who needs help with bookkeeping, there's a link in my description. You could reach me there and I'd love to help. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.